Koudelka. One game I'm excited to review with you guys. So I just beat this a couple weeks ago for the very first time. I played the Shadow Hearts games, at least 2 out of the 3 on PlayStation 2. I played Covenant, and I've also played the first Shadow Hearts, but not the Brave New World, or the beginning of a new world, whatever the hell the third one's called. I still have not yet played that one. I will eventually, but holy shit, the Shadow Hearts games have gone up in price on PS2. Whoa, my butt hurts just thinking about how much it's going to cost me to get those again. Anyway, going back to this, let me tell you a little bit of a brief summary on how I obtained this game for my collection. Now, a lot of us know that Koudelka is expensive for PlayStation 1. It's going up to like $300. And a kind viewer, a member of my gaming community, a follower, and now I consider a good friend, my friend ACDC sent this to me from his collection. Now, the thing about this game that I want to mention, how he obtained it, which is a wild story. So, you know, we all go game hunting, we go to thrift stores, we go Goodwilling, hell, we even get to go to yard sales. For him, he went to a yard sale, was digging through a bins of like CDs, DVDs, from what I remember him telling me, and he came across this. And guess how much he paid for it? $1. $1 for this. Now, that was really kind of him to send this to me. And of course, ACDC, shout out to you, man. I highly appreciate it. And of course, this review is for you because I wanted to let you know, especially you, what I thought about Koudelka since you were the one that actually gave this to me. But his kindness did not go unrewarded. There was a game that he was looking for PlayStation 2. And I found it for him, and I sent it to him, and that was Sky Gunner for PlayStation 2. And that's basically kind of like a little shmup, I guess, in a sense. I played a little bit of it. It works great. Sent it to him, and of course, he was happy to get it. I hope you enjoy it, man. Thanks again for this. I appreciate it. Now, I always get that game confused for some fucking reason with Trap Gunner. I don't know why I do that. Trap Gunner's on PlayStation 1, and Sky Gunner's for PS2, so I remember actually talking about that. I'm like, hey, yeah. I'm like, oh, shit. Wrong one. I meant Sky Gunner, not Trap Gunner. I've not played Trap Gunner at all, so I don't even know what the hell that is. I have no idea. Now, let's go ahead and get into my thoughts on Koudelka. Beautiful pre-rendering background like this. You get that throughout the entirety of the game. But let me read you what the back of this case says because it definitely is on point with how this game is, you know, captivated. A gothic horror RPG set in the late 19th century, an epic tale of mystery, mayhem, and a lot of other shenanigans. That's not what it says, but you get the drift. A beautiful yet troubled woman named Koudelka who has been summoned to unravel it all. So, this game, going into it, let's go ahead and go through. See, look at that. The 3D pre-rendering background is definitely one thing for the time, you know, that definitely makes this game stand out. Another thing that I learned, see, I didn't know this whenever I was playing the game, and someone came in whenever I was streaming it. Yes, I did stream the entirety of this game. I only stream on Twitch, just FYI, if you want to come check me out, DG2009 on Twitch too. That's the only place I stream games. I don't stream anywhere else but there. So I was streaming, and someone came in that knew the game. They actually dropped a bit of information that was very captivating to me and made sense, and you'll see that in just a moment. So basically, whenever you see the characters' movement, like how they move their mouth, like when they talk and how they walk, actually this was, you know how people like do like motion capturing in video games? Well, this one was one of the very first ones to do that. I had no clue that back in 2000 that they were doing this shit, especially for the PlayStation 1. So that was definitely a key point of information that was like, holy shit, that's cool as hell. I did not know. So just FYI, if you didn't know that little tidbit about Koudelka, now you do. So that's why everything looks really smooth whenever they speak, whenever they move. They literally were capturing the people actually making these movements and stuff, even that back early on. I don't know if any other games on PlayStation 1 did that kind of, you know, capture whenever it comes to characters, but this one did. So now we're going to load the game up from one of my old save files that I have. I have 2. I have one that's near in-game and then one that's before that. So the game, talking about it, it is 4 discs. Yes, oh, you're going to think, holy shit, that's long as hell. Well, hold on a second. No, it is a relatively short game. You could beat it in like 15 hours. Me, it took me It took me 42 to beat the game. That's because it's my first time. I'm trying to, capture everything, trying to get through the moment. And it's an RPG, so naturally, whenever I play an RPG, you gotta double the time whenever it takes. Normally for someone to beat one by me, especially whenever I'm playing something for the very first time and I'm not used to it. Hell, even when I play Legend Dragoon, I still, at least clock in over 100 hours because I take my sweet ass time and I know when I need to grind. In this one, you will need to grind, especially for the 4th disc, because holy shit, it gets harder by each disc. I'm not fucking joking. Unless you could take the fucking hits, I suggest you do that. Now, the majority of the disc is taken up of, with FMVs, like the cutscenes, things like that. So that's what takes up most of the disc space. So that's why it's 4 discs long. It's not long as in the story. It's mainly because of that. So don't let that dissuade you from playing it. Now, from what I understand, there's no other way to play Koudelka unless you emulate it or buy it. So it's not on the PlayStation Store that I'm aware of, so if you want to play it, that's the only 2 ways you're going to be able to play this game, so just FYI. It is expensive, but it's worth getting because it's a survival horror / RPG. Think of, if you are a fan of Parasite Eve, you will like this. However, it's a little bit different of an RPG versus how Parasite Eve is, and you're about to find out. So let's go ahead and load the file. Okay. You better load my file. Speaking of, saving on this game is one thing that I was fucking confused about until I was like, how the hell do I save? Well, there are 2 ways to save in this game. So, I'm going to tell you a story about one of my save files if it will fucking load. Oh god. I was like, it wasn't going to load. Like, for right now, for instance, let's talk about the saving for a minute. Do you see the S on the left-hand side? Well, that means that each room that has that S, you'll be able to hit the actual circle button. I was like, which button do I hit? The circle button to bring up the save. And then whenever you move, if I can, it's gone. So that's one way to save. Another way, and I think this is only pertaining to whenever you fight a boss, because that's the only time that they show up, is whenever you're near a fountain. So like basically like a holy fountain, you're like, oh, getting glistening and listening. I get to save in the wave, literally. So you have 3 characters in your party. You have Koudelka, and then you have Edward and James, which, let me show you what they look like. We're not in battle right now, so it would be a little bit harder to see. So if you go up to status, of course, you have Koudelka, even her last name. So you have all your stats, basically like any RPG. And then you have Edward, which is the thief. And then you have James, which is the priest from the Catholic Church, which is, I'm like, what? I'm like, okay. Now, one thing I have to say, the banter between James and Edward is hilarious because he literally calls him a holy man and he don't give a rat's ass. The one thing that's beautiful about this game is the dialogue, because especially between those two, because it literally is hilarious with some of the shit that they say. You have to experience it to understand what I'm talking about. There was just moments that I was rolling. I was like, what the hell? Because back in the 90s and early 2000s, a lot of games, whenever they were made, a lot of the developers didn't give 2 splits of a shit. They literally just made whatever the hell they wanted, and it was awesome, and it flew by. But now in this day and age, with gaming, it's not the same as it used to be. Everybody's like, oh my butt, we can't put that in there. Well, back then, they did, and it was funny as shit, and it's definitely aged well. Now, I like this menu setup that they have because it kind of looks like a deck of tarot cards almost, in a sense, with how they're like pictured, like their little pictures that they have, and I like the the aesthetic of the 19th century desk with the little lamp and the books and all that. So we're gonna go through. Of course, you can heal. You can pick your target: Koudelka, Edward, James. You have healing stats. Your status, I've already showed that. It just tells like strength, vitality. They even have one for piety as well, because of course, why not? Now, the magic in this game, everybody can do it. A lot of people fixate on different things for each character. A lot of times people will pick, whenever they pick Edward, because, he's known for his strength, they focus on strength rather than magic. And when it comes to James, they focus on him as a healer, and Koudelka, they focus on magic because, of course, she's a psychic, so that makes sense. You also have weapons as well, but I'll get to that in a second. So the only way to actually level up your magic is by using it in this game. You can only go up to level 3, and each time that you use it, you get a certain amount of points. I don't know exactly how many points you get whenever it comes to which specific one. As you can see, like Flare's, you know, like maxed out at 999. Tornado is not, but Geyser almost is. And then you have Revive, which I've not used because I've never had to use it, because I've had other things to heal myself, and I've tried to keep myself from actually going face down on the floor planting, even though I only died one time during my playthrough of this, just once on disc 4. That's why I mentioned earlier, you need to level the fuck up whenever, especially when you get to disc 4 and you're going up the tower. Those fucking literal vines, like going like this, will literally stick it in where the sun don't shine if you don't watch. They are hard as hell, so it's definitely a key point to at least be a level 60 or above if you're gonna jump up there. There's something that people do that I noticed. Yes, I did look at a guide for this because I was curious about how people were able to get certain things and do certain things, because there's things that are missable in this. There's like weapons that are missable. There's a lot of glitches with this game. Apparently you can get, like, you know, Edward's weapon at like this marked this number, or James this marked this number. There's things that are missable in here. I didn't know about the glitches until too late. I'm like, well, I can't fucking get that now. So apparently that's the thing in this game, just FYI. If you do it, I suggest you look at a guide if you want to get the special weapons and stuff, because that's the only way to get them is if you do the glitch. That's it. There's no other way to do it. There's no other way around it. So, going back to, of course, the stats. Now, there is something called fortify. So, basically, when you fortify your stuff, you're going to fortify your stats, you know, your strength, your vitality, your dexterity. That definitely is something very helpful whenever you're fighting bosses, especially if you have one person doing magic, one person doing physical attacks, depending on what they're weak against, because some enemies are, you know, more potent to things versus other things. So, that's the case in point. It's a good idea to level it up the most it can get. So, yeah, grinding is a thing that I did. That's why things are pretty high. And like I said, level 3 is the highest that this can go as well for the fortifying whenever it comes to your stats. Now, the weapons that I want to talk about. So, of course, you have different weapon sets. They can go up for level, just like, you know, whenever it comes to your magic, fortifying. Your weapons do the same thing. They will level up as you use them. Now, here's the caveat to that, though. They break, except for the apparently except for the guns. Like, I have an automatic pistol on Koudelka. The guns don't break as far as I'm aware, but the swords and then the spears and all that other shit, the maces, they will break. And of course you got your fist, which is, you know, 999. Everything goes up to level 3. Now, like I said, some of the stuff I missed, some of it I didn't bother because I mainly focused on like just using magic for everybody in my party. So pretty much everybody was a mage. And, you know, in this, I didn't really use a lot of physical attacks. You know, I did it first and I moved. I'm like, okay, I'm going to use magic. I had to learn how to do everything because I was like, what the hell? How do I do this? How do I level up my magic? Because, you know, in a lot of RPGs, it levels up on its own. But, you know, without having to use it, it just does this thing. And it's like, oh, it's level here, level here. But if you don't use it in this, it won't move. So you'll go up in your level for your stats, but your magic won't move. It'll only stay where it's at. As far as I'm aware, that's how I understand it works. It is kind of complicated to deal with some of this stuff. It took me a minute to understand how it works, but that's it. And of course, you got your experience and everything at the bottom. Same thing goes with Edward. You can actually check their stats and all that mess. And same thing with James. You can see all that. And of course, now whenever it comes to weapons, you have different ones that you can do. He has like the dark water sword. Each one has their own elements. Some of them have healing properties. Some of them, you know, give you more magic points, you know, more MP. And then of course you have like, you know, your actual stuff to keep you safe. You know, you have your armor. Now the thing with the armor and the rings and stuff like that, a lot of enemies drop things. Like the way I found some of my armor mail, the enemy had to drop it. So sometimes you'll find things in here, but it's more gonna actually pertain to enemies dropping certain things. I don't know which enemy drops what. I have no idea. It's very random whenever it comes to that. There could be, I'm pretty sure there are guides out there that people that have played this in depth a lot more than I have that could explain what drops where and who and when and how, and sometimes in between, I don't know. And of course you got equip. Now you have your items page. So your weapon, of course, these are all the weapons that I have. You have axes, you have lances, you have some kind of pariah thing, a cat's eye, which is, you know, it looks like it's for your fist. Just different things. You even have a crossbow, you have your armor, you have accessories too, which you can get, you know, throughout the game. Sometimes, you know, you can find them. Most of the time monsters drop them. Tools basically are where you're going to go for your item set. So you have Roman nuts, you have bread, which heals HP, you have the panacea, you have whiskey. Whiskey will actually bring you, like, if you're knocked out, whiskey, you're gonna take a whiff of that and it's gonna wake your ass up. So that's how you wake up in this game. Now the Listilles are basically how you replenish your MP. These are not very frequent in the game. You don't find them very much. So the only way you're going to get a lot of these is if you grind, and monsters will drop them because they're not very plentiful in this. So that's what makes the game more difficult in spots, is that you don't get a lot of items whenever it comes to things. You got to really look at every nook and cranny before you can find stuff. Sometimes it's not always visible. Sometimes it'll be sitting out. Kind of think how like Resident Evil, and I'm going to be actually mentioning Resident Evil in just a moment about some of this stuff about how this game is played. It will poke out sometimes, but sometimes it's hard to see because it could be on like a body, or it could be, you know, just floating around on a table. You don't even notice it. But sometimes it will stand out, will look a little bit different from everything else in the visible. You've got your high potion, your potion, and of course your rounds. Some of this stuff is like key items that you'll have. The water, now the scrolls, I don't know much about those. I do know that certain monsters drop those and you can actually use them, you know, to your benefit, especially against, you know, certain bosses. You definitely want to save that for the harder bosses in this, especially the last one that you deal with, because she's a pain in the ass if you want to use it for that. There's one certain boss that I did not actually beat because he is a motherfucker, and no matter I'm like level 60 something, I still can't whip his ass. That's the gargoyle. You actually come in contact with him basically once you run. There's no way you can beat him by apparently you can't. I don't know. I've seen different things. You can beat him with just Koudelka because it's just you and him, or you can come back with your party and then take him on because you can go back and fight him. I took my party with me because I ran like a bat out of hell the first time. I'm like, nope, I'm out by, because I literally wasn't doing any damage to the fucker. I'm like, I ain't gonna sit here all fucking day and do this. So I left, which technically you're supposed to do. I don't know how the fuck people are beating this dude with just her, but apparently some people have, I guess, from what I remember reading. Now, I went back to try to fucking fight that asshole. I'm like, how the fuck do I beat this asshole? Because he can literally one-shot you. He was doing that to me whenever I was in my 40s. I'm like, okay, I'm going to level up. I leveled up. He was still kicking my ass in the 60s, and I said, I'm fucking done with this. He's actually one of the bosses you have to beat in order to get a special sword. If you do not beat him, you cannot get it. It's pretty much, I can't remember what it's called. It's actually called the same company that that actually made this game. Shit, I can't remember where the fuck's their name at. Anyway, I don't know. I can't find it. Where is it? Oh, wait, it ain't them. Anyway, it's the same name as the company that made this. And it's basically being held by a statue out in the courtyard. You can't get it unless you beat the gargoyle. That's the only way to unlock that sword. And I couldn't beat him. I tried flipping the scrolls at him and everything, because that's what a lot of people said to do, because I'm like, how the fuck do I do this? They said to flip the scrolls at him. I did that. The only one you can't use against him is the air scroll, because he's immune to it, because he's a goddamn gargoyle. Of course he's flapping his wings and everything else. There's no way to fucking, you know, hit him with that shit. It won't hurt him. So the scrolls only are dropped every now and then. They're not very common. So I've only got a couple, as you see, and I was saving them for him, and I kept dying. I did say I only died once during the game. That's whenever I was playing through it, you know, on stream. I only died once. I don't really want to count the times I died against the gargoyle, because I was doing that on my own. So I technically said once for my complete playthrough. Whenever I'm doing side stuff like that, I didn't count that. So I'm letting that one slide. Yeah. But that's the general gist of the menu and the tools and things like that you had. The formation, as you see, you know, that's just with any regular RPG. You got your formation. Read is just like documents that you have, configuration. Then you have a map, which I will show you. There's another way to get to the map. This map confuses the shit out of me. It did not help me at all. Yeah, there's a lot. We're literally, you know, on the floor. That's the basement, floor 1. I think the check marks mean that I went to that room. I don't fucking know. I have no clue how to read this damn map. I have no idea. It confused the fuck out of me. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'm open now that map, and apparently I want to go back to it again. I'm like, hell no. So basically, I was just trying to go through and trying to figure out where to go, what to do. The game is pretty easy to maneuver through. It's not too difficult, but some spots you kind of like, okay, what did I miss? Because there are puzzles in this game. So if you notice, it does have tank controls. So that's one thing. And look at the scenery. If you notice that, what does it look like to you? Resident Evil, right? Yes, you'd be correct. So, whenever I first started playing this, I'm like, I'm really feeling Resident Evil vibes with this. Especially the first Resident Evil game. So, you're in a monastery. You go there because you feel like a connection. You're summoned there by force. Koudelka is. I don't exactly remember how Edward and James come about coming there. I think that Edward came there to steal shit. And I think that James just came there because of his love that he was trying to save or do something, or the church told him to go there at some point. I don't remember exactly why he was called there, but he was. You first meet Edward, and then you meet James later. So basically you're going through, you're trying to find your way out. You meet this older couple. They literally are sussy. They give you some food. Koudelka doesn't eat it, but Edward does. He gets really sick, and then she heals his ass. I don't know how the other two got powers, because everyone can use magic, including her. I mean, obvious for her because she's a psychic. How the fuck are the other two using powers? I have no fucking idea. I'm still very confused on that sentiment. If you know, let me know, because I don't fucking know. Some of this game is still very confusing to me about what the hell's going on. So basically the premise of the game, it first starts off you're trying to get the fuck out of here, and it takes a process. You're trying to get all the way up to the tower. Basically that's where I'm at now. I'm at literally in game. So you meet several monsters along the way. You actually have to deal with the old couple again later on, which apparently they've gone crazy and things like that, and they end up going bye-bye. There's a scene with that. So you come to find out there's a lady named Eileen, I believe is her name, and there was a scientist that his wife passed. So he's trying to bring her back to life, and this is what this whole fucking monastery is. It's literally because of him getting dabbling into shit he shouldn't, trying to bring her back. Now, there was also a dungeon to where, they would bring prisoners here and do things that they shouldn't have done. I'm just gonna put it that way. You'll find out for yourself whenever you play the game. So there's that. So there's that whole spiel too about before the guy was trying to, resurrect his wife basically from the dead. And it went off to fucking hell. He ends up, biting the dust, and then she is still here because you find a painting of her, and then you realize, oh shit, she's the main cause of all this hell. So she's going to be the final boss that we're going to have to deal with. I've already had to fight her twice technically, because whenever you're running up the tower, she's chasing your ass. People say you can outrun her. I couldn't fucking outrun her ass. I had to fucking fight her twice. And then she's going to be the big bad final boss whenever we get done with it. Now, there are 3 endings to this game. There's the bad ending, the good ending, and the what the fuck ending. So the what the fuck ending, basically, you can only do it if you don't have the pendant. There's a specific pendant that Koudelka has to have in order for you to get to the final boss and get the good ending, bad ending, whatever you want to get. So if you don't have that pendant, you're fucked. You get the fucked oh shit ending, because whenever Elaine hits you, zapped your ass, you don't have it protected, because that pendant will protect you from her blast. You don't got that, you're gonna be crispier than fucking chicken. Literally. You die. That's the ending. That's ending number 1. The bad ending is the canon one for the Shadowheart series. So, just FYI. So basically, you get to the top, you have to die against her, and that's the ending you get. The good ending is... It's not that good, but it's an ending. You beat her, yeah. Ooh, the end of the day, the sunrise again. We're out, we're free. So everybody lives. The bad ending, not everybody does. So there's that. So that's the premise of those 2. I personally like bad ending because it's better cinematics anyway. So let's talk about the game mechanics for a minute. So you'll notice, like I was saying earlier, this is tank controls. Now, I like tank controls for Resident Evil. I did not like them for Parasite Eve 2. It does not fit every single game. But this one, it makes sense. It works. It's good. So it took me a minute to get used to it. I'm like, what the hell? Oh, it's tank controls. Oh, shit. So definitely has those vibes of Resident Evil. And like I said, the aesthetic and stuff that it has, too, definitely fits like the Resident Evil. Whenever I'm thinking Resident Evil 1, I'm thinking the mansion. I'm thinking all that. I'm thinking the maneuvering, having to look for shit, having to check every single damn item whenever it comes to finding crap. So there's that. Now, the battle sequence is another thing. Speaking of, here we go. We're going to talk about that for a minute. What the fuck is that? Now, the monsters in this... That's a cat. The monsters in this... Here's where another game comes into play whenever it comes to the survival horror franchise, and that's Silent Hill. Some of these fucking monsters literally look like they crawled out of Silent Hill. For real. It's like a mashup of the monsters are Silent Hill, the aesthetic is Resident Evil, and then you have the actual combat, which is you're about to see. So of course you have move, action, wait, and then status. You know, you're checking your status, you're gonna wait, and then of course, you know, move. What's move? Well, you're gonna find out. This is what move is. So this is a tactical RPG. This is not turn-based. So, you all know I do not like tactical RPGs. I don't. The only one I've liked recently within the last year is Rhapsody, A Musical Adventure. That is the one that I loved. I adored it. So when I found out, whenever I saw the gameplay, I'm like, oh man. I'm like, well, maybe it won't be bad. And it wasn't. It wasn't over the top like, you know, Final Fantasy Tactics, which I cannot stand that on PlayStation 1. Don't come at me. I just don't like it. It's not my thing. It's not over the top. It's very simplistic and it's easy to maneuver, you know. Boom, bada bing, get it done, it's over. So you just basically got to move your characters around, you know, like you would. That's it. She moves, she does her thing. And of course, you can do action, which, you know, now of course, as you know, you got to be close enough to an enemy in order to attack them with, like, attacking, you know. She has the gun so she could shoot at a distance. If you're doing, like, close-up combat, you have to actually be close for that to actually be even, you know, available for you to do. And of course you have your magic, and you know, you have like all the stuff I mentioned. You have healing, you're going to heal your party, flares, fire, geyser I think is some kind of water spout thing, tornado is wind, Megalith is like a rock-based thing, reflect, you're going to reflect your shit, revive, like I said, I never had to use it, so there's that. And of course you have your items, which will heal your ass or do whatever. We're just going to wait. And then now, of course, every single party member has the same magic, has everything the same. You know, the only difference is basically is that, you know, your stats are different, you know, as far as like what level they are. That's it. That's the one thing that I like about this. It's pretty consistent across the board whenever it comes to that. So we're just going to do magic, and I'll show you what it looks like, you know, as far as the cinematics go. We'll do flare. We're going to hit the kitty. Even he has to do a prayer before he hits the cat. That's what he does. Like, everybody has their own little movements that they do whenever it comes to that. You know, the little runs, you know, their motions and stuff like that. And we'll show you some magic whenever it comes to fortifying. I think I have enough. Yeah. We'll fortify strength. Now, whenever he does anything, whenever it comes to magic, fortifying, whatever, he looks like he's dropping his shit on the floor. You'll see what I mean. He's literally straining to drop his shit. Oh, yeah, she's good. Yeah, she's a kitty. And I'm going to make her wait. And this is how it goes. Like, the music in the game is another thing I like. Because it kind of sounds kind of like something I dubbed bard. Well, I didn't dub it, but I've heard of it. It's called bardcore. So basically, it's kind of like, you know, old aesthetic, like dun, 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 dun. I think it's really cool. So that's literally when I first heard it. I'm like, yeah, this is bardcore stuff. This is fucking great. I love it. See, look, he looks like he's straining to take his shit. Oh, so I just raised his AP, so which is his just stats. You know, it'll raise whatever you do. So there's that. We're gonna wait. We're gonna do action. I'll show you what she does whenever she does that. That's it. Holy shit, that's a lot. Like I said, they're pretty beefed up with their levels and things like that. And of course you get the cinematic. Now he does have one of the ultimate swords that you can get in the game called the Life Drinker. That one's easy to find. It's basically hidden in a room. You just have to light the room up and be like, boom, there it is. That's it. I'm like, oh, okay, there it is. I leveled up. So another thing, since we're talking about that, you do get bonus points to allocate for your stats after you level up, but you only get 4, so you could put them wherever you want to. Now, each character, typically what I did, I focused mainly trying to keep everything equal across the board until I was, you know, getting up there and leveling. Like, okay, I'm going to give them more HP, whatever the case, or more magic to allocate, since I'm basically using everybody as a mage. So that's basically what I did whenever it came to that. So everything was even across the board. So, moving on. Now, of course, you can walk. You use the D-pad to move. You can... Shit. Go back to there again. You can run. I'm trying to remember how. You can run with triangle. And then that's how you do that. Now, the battles, I will say that the battles are, you know, random. They can be, they're not really, like, all up on you like a lot of RPGs are. They're pretty spread out, so it's not really a lot of, like, oh, I take 2 steps and then I got a battle. It's not that bad or anything like that. So, I think she's gonna, you can feel a pulse in the plant. Uh-oh. So, this is what I meant by the cinematics. So here's the cinematics, there's the facial recognition and stuff. I think it's definitely beautifully rendered whenever it comes to a game, because look at that. So many games on PlayStation 1 had great FMV whenever it comes to that, and this one is definitely no exception. Now, what do I rate this game? See, there's the pendant that was talking about, save me, don't breathe your icy bullshit on me. So we're gonna get one of the endings, we gotta go up and fight her. Yeah, that's the Eileen, however the fuck you say your name. And so she's basically gonna follow us in this thing. She's like a creepy crawly thing. She literally looks like she's something that he's getting his western thing on my gun. Yeah. She literally looks like she crawled out of fucking Silent Hill, or even hell, even Parasite Eve, because it's just that creepy. Because Parasite Eve is known for being gross as fuck, for real. Because all the monsters are like ew and all kinds of like gooey shit, and people burn. See, look at that. The name of the sword is Sacknoth. It even says it on the back of this. I'm like, oh. Apparently my peepers need to be checked. Woo. Anyway, now my final thoughts on Koudelka. Would I play it again? Hell yeah. Should you play it? Hell yeah. Definitely worth it. But, you know, it is really expensive, like I said. $300 is a lot to drop on a game. So if you can get it for cheaper than that, hell yeah. Do it. If not, you know, emulation. Hell, that's a thing. I'm pretty sure you can find it somewhere to do that with. I don't know where. Don't ask me. I don't emulate. That's not my wheelhouse. I have no fucking idea. But the game overall, the aesthetic is pleasing. The story is well worthwhile, you know, especially going to the roots of where the Shadow Heart series started. The characters are memorable, you know, especially the banter between them all, which is funny as hell. That's one thing that I was not expecting whenever it came to this. I thought it was going to be all serious and stuff, especially with the backgrounds of some of the characters, but it wasn't. Holy shit. The monsters are definitely, you know, gross and really fit the bill whenever it comes to a survival horror title, you know, with this, you know, slash RPG. And then, of course, you have, like, the different mechanics, you know, whenever it comes to, like, the weapons, you know, they have, you know, that handicap whenever it comes to breaking, so you're limited with that. And of course your magic, you have to really work your ass off in order to bump that up, so that way you don't fucking die later on in the game, because it gets that difficult. Each disc gets more difficult, so there's that too. I love that part of it, that it makes it a little bit more challenging for you, and it's well worth it. And of course the FMV, we can't forget the FMV, but how beautiful it is, how the backgrounds are pre-rendered, how the literal motion capture of the characters literally makes it feel like you're literally almost watching a movie. Is that freaking good? I love that about it. Even the music OST is definitely a big thing for me. You know, well, it's a bonus, but a big thing, because I love a lot of OSTs for certain games. Chrono Trigger comes to mind. You all know that that's my favorite game of all time, so of course I'm gonna shout that out all day, every day. But this one, with the way it takes, you know, the aesthetic, especially just like the baseline stuff, because there's different, you know, battle music whenever it comes to the game. You know, you have your battle music, and then you have your boss music, and then you have the final boss music. I prefer just the standard battle music, because it's got that barcore feel, and I can just jam out and be like, yeah, let's rock it on. Now, like I said, I was almost dissuaded with the combat, because I am not a tactical fan at all, but it wasn't enough to dissuade me from playing the game. Luckily, I was able to just power through it, and it was fine. I dealt with it. It was not something I had to literally sit there and be like, where do I place this person at? I just could go with the flow, whack shit, and then go on and move on throughout the game. The puzzles can be a little bit annoying sometimes, but that's, you know, that's gonna happen with a lot of survival horror titles. Some puzzles will be like, how the fuck do I fucking get through this shit? What is the answer? I did that a lot. I remember one puzzle that was notorious for a lot of us growing up, and that was the water sample puzzle in Resident Evil 3. Oh dear lord, the first time I ever played Resident Evil 3, it took me forever to figure that shit out. And then another one, I don't know why this one literally went over my head, was the one in Dino Crisis with the pipe puzzle. It took me forever to figure out where the fuck to stick that shit in, like which one went where. It was so annoying. That was the one puzzle I had trouble with in that game whenever I was younger. But, you know, I still have trouble with it, but it's okay. I can still get through it. It might take me a few minutes, but I can get through it. Now, that is all the time I have for you, my friends. This game gets a 10 out of 10 from me. Highly recommended. Highly suggest that you check it out if you get a chance to. But as always, this is the PlayStation Girl signing out. Game on!